Downstairs, Part 1, production number 1512, recording date 24/10/72, take 1.
What on earth?
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Hudson. Just wanted the paper.
Well, I asked to read it. With her ladyship out on a call, surely I can be allowed 5 minutes rules.
It's from Miss Elizabeth, Mr. Hudson.
Miss Elizabeth? And what does she want with the Times newspaper?
She wants to see the business bit about stocks and shares and that.
Absolute nonsense. Another of her crazies, I suppose. What'll it be next?
Football, perhaps? Chelsea for the cup?
There is no cause for you to be impertinent, Rose. Off you go now.
I got it. Oh, good.
Kaffirs, lively but unreliable. Nervous profit-taking eroded their true values. A bullish sentiment prevailing in American rails. Some operators burnt their fingers in Vulcan oil. Oh, I'm afraid that's me. Beware of dabbling in Vulcan oil, Rose.
I'm sure I don't know what you see in all that. It sounds like a foreign language to me.
It is. Mr. Karakin is teaching it to me.
Oh? Thought you said you didn't like him.
No, I don't exactly like him, but he has got a sort of animal magnetism. And he is being very helpful about my investments. Great Aunt Mary left me a few shares, and it's most important that I understand all about the city so that I can make money on them.
I'd have thought you had enough of that already.
Oh, no, Rose, not half enough. Not of my own. Without money, I'll stay trapped here in the fond embrace of my family until I just fade away into nothingness. I've got to escape.
You don't have such a bad life.
But I'm so useless. I'm so bored. I have a horrible life.
What about me, then?
You've got a job to do, Rose. How I envy you.
It's yours any time you like, Miss Lizzie.
You don't see how lucky you are.
No, I don't. Your frogged sealskin, Miss Elizabeth?
I mean, when you've cleaned and dusted the morning room.
And the drawing room and the stairs, changed the linen seat.
You can say to yourself proudly, I, Rosebuck, have done all this by myself. Gosh, look at the time. I must rush or I'll be late. Mr. Karakin likes punctuality.
From what I've heard of him, that's not what all he likes. You mark my words. He'll want his pound of flesh.
Rose, sometimes you really are rather a goose. I will not go.
Margot, please. You were not asked here in the first place, and I thought we had agreed that it was wiser not to meet again.
I can't do without you.
You've managed to do without my 4 or 5 predecessors.
Oh, what a vile, cruel thing to say. After all I've done for you. Without me, you wouldn't exist. Socially, I mean.
And without me, you and your husband would be bankrupt, instead of very comfortably off indeed. It was a mutually convenient arrangement, and it is now over.
Oh, don't say that, please.
I do say that. There's my visitor now. Please go.
I shall wait for you in the bedroom.
You will not.
So I've been replaced already.
If you don't go immediately, I shall telephone your husband.
Good day. Can I see Miss Gray?
It will be necessary to wait. I will be 7 days.
Dirty little Jew boy.
Mrs. Kelbridge, my dear Mrs. Kelbridge.
Who was that?
Another lady seeking advice.
You have a lot of ladies seeking advice.
Of course. There's safety in numbers. And always try to please.
She didn't look very pleased to me.
Can you blame her? Your youthful beauty would make the moon herself pale with envy.
I've done the nose trick. Very ill manner to make a lady laugh when she's drinking champagne.
My humble apologies. Well, we haven't done so badly this week. East Rand Central made a nice spurt.
But what about Vulcan Oil and our poor Ploesti concessions?
I sold on Tuesday. We can buy them back again when they hit the bottom. Unfortunately, the market is very nervous at the moment. If only the Conservatives had won the election.
Oh, Father and Mother were désolé, of course, but I thought they did rather well. After all, the Liberals only have a tiny majority now.
Oh, that's still dangerous with that terrible little Welshman in the cabinet.
I think he's rather funny. Did you read what he said about dukes? A fully equipped duke costs as much to keep up as 2 dreadnoughts, and dukes are just as great a terror, and they last longer.
All the same, Lloyd George and Churchill are spending more on unemployment insurance than they are on rearmaments. They're pacifists at heart.
But Father says the Tories have been able to force the government to rearm the Turkish Navy.
Does he indeed?
Well, that should help our Ploesti concessions.
Yes, he didn't say who had got the contract.
I don't think so.
Could it be Armstrong's?
Armstrongs? What are they?
You know, I think it's very fortunate for this country that people like your father and your grandfather have always had such a say in defense matters.
You seem to have studied the history of my family.
Oh, I like to know the form before I place a bet.
Are you betting on me?
I may. I've always found the combination of beauty and high birth very attractive.
Snob.
Of course. My father was an Armenian carpet merchant.
I may be an earl's granddaughter, but I'm not beautiful.
De gustibus nil disputandum.
Anyway, beauty's only sin deep.
Not original. I, too, read the Westminster Gazette.
Do you know, I think my parents might almost approve of you. Would you like to meet them?
I would like to meet them, but they wouldn't approve of me.
How do you know?
Well, because they would think, as you thought when you first met me, that I was a dirty foreign Jew, my hands soiled with filthy lucre, trying to ingratiate myself with them. And they would be right, except for the fact that I'm not actually a Jew. And they would immediately jump to the conclusion that I had my cunning, predatory eye on their daughter.
You're being absurd.
No, I'm not. They would be right again. My mouth. Those grey, green eyes. Where your hair grows off your forehead, I find them strangely disturbing.
Rose said you'd want your pound of flesh.
Rose, not without a thorn. But Persipia.
Julius, I have a daughter.
Lots of married ladies have daughters.
She's not my husband's child. She was a mistake.
We won't make any mistakes. Elizabeth.
Morning, Miss Elizabeth.
The light of all the love in the world seemed to flood the lady's face. She bent over and kissed him, and smoothed his cheek with her velvet cheek. her curly lashes might touch his bare neck. Then a madness of tender caressing seized her. She purred, as a tiger might have done, while she undulated like a snake. She touched him with her fingertips. She kissed his throat. His wrists. The palms of his hands. His eyelids, his hair.
Yeah.
Strange, subtle kisses, unlike the kisses of women. And often between her purrings, she muttered love words in some strange, fierce language of her own. Carissima, liebchen, tovarich.
Janikros.
What?
It's a Armenian love word.
Janikros!
Oh! Where did you get that trashy nonsense?
From your bookcase, presumably left here by one of your other ladies. Well, you can hardly deny there were others.
No, I don't. But never one like you.
Poof, I wonder how many times these walls have heard that old lie.
Never, I swear.
Oh, you are a joke when you're serious. But I don't blame them, those other ladies. You are utterly adorable.
And you are ticklish.
No, don't, please.
And I begin to wonder.
Oh,
Your parents? Or do you often do this?
you are medium peasant. Oh, Rose will make it all right. Rose is a brick.
You really trust Rose?
I think she's the only person in this whole wide world I really do trust.
Here, Mr. Hudson.
Oh, thank you, Rose. Oh, Rose, I am informed by the kitchen that Miss Elizabeth hasn't touched her breakfast.
No, Mr. Hudson, she isn't feeling very peckish. Just a little upset.
Apparently Mrs. Curbridge isn't feeling quite herself, my lady, and she's spending the morning in bed.
I should go see the doctor. Well, I'll go up and see her.
Now, Rose also mentioned that Mrs. Curbridge was having a wee nap just at the moment, my lady.
Well, that's the best cure there is.
My lady. Good morning, sir.
Morning, Hudson. Not going out, are you?
No, what?
Geoffrey Dillon wants to see both of us.
I don't think why me.
Something about your father's will. He's due at 11:30. I don't know where that man of mine hides all my cravats.
Why don't you ask him to come in and show you?
Now, Elizabeth, that would hardly be
I'm
right.
sure he wouldn't mind.
Really, child, you have no sense of propriety.
Oh, come back to me. Forget the dull old city for just one day.
You don't seem to understand. The market has already been open for over an hour. I've missed one important meeting already. And the Cafier's Consul's dividend is being declared in an hour.
Oh, disaster. Think of all those lively but unreliable Cafiers running wild all over the floor of the stock exchange without you there to calm them. I know. I will come to the city with you. One moment I shall be a bear, growling and snarling and pulling down Cafiers and Consuls and foreign rails by the million with my sharp, ruthless claws. And the next moment I shall be a bull, charging in among all those jobbers and brokers and stuffy old top hatters, tossing portfolios of equities and industrials high in the air with one flick of my gilt-edged sword.
Goodbye, Elizabeth. Loris will look after you.
Can I come back?
Of course, my darling.
Tonight?
Yes, not too early. After 6. Now, under the terms of your father's will, of which I am the executor, the principal beneficiary is your brother Hugo, the present Lord Southwell.
Yes, of course.
Your mother has been amply provided for, and you yourself, in effect, received your legacy under the terms of your marriage settlement. I should explain that the bulk of the estate, the land situated in Wiltshire, the freehold property in London and Bristol, the heirlooms, pictures, furniture, etc., belonging to the family, are entailed on your brother and his heirs, and are not therefore realizable for the payment of death duties, which, I'm sorry to say, are considerable, owing to the new, and I'm bound to say, punitive legislation introduced by the present Chancellor.
Oh, that thief, Lloyd George.
Quite. In a codicil to his will, your father laid it upon me as a trust that the estate should be handed over free of all debt, so that on his succession to the earldom, Lord Ashby should be clear of all financial embarrassment.
You all know Hugo's in debt.
Over £100,000. What? I have to raise a great deal of money, quickly and in cash. Now, there are 17
leasehold properties, all here in Westminster, purchased by your father, Lady Marjorie, in 1872, and not within the entail. I shall be forced to put them on the market immediately. This house is a mountain. I thought you should be acquainted with this fact at once.
You mean you're going to sell this house?
The remaining 60-odd years of the lease.
But my father meant me to have this house for my lifetime. He's often told me so. You can't sell it.
I'm afraid I can and must. His assurance to you, though I'm sure it was sincere at the time, is not reflected in his will, nor was his intention incorporated in your marriage settlement.
I'm sure if we pay Hugo a proper rent, he'll agree to let us go on living here.
Yes, I'll talk to him when he gets back from Canada.
Elusive as your brother is apt to prove, I have been able to contact him while he was staying in a town called Calgary for some cattle show. He will not be returning before the summer, and he has accepted my suggestions in their entirety.
Then I shall also contact him immediately.
That you will. Naturally, you will be offered first refusal on the purchase of the lease.
For how much?
On the open market, it should realize some £5,600.
£5,600? You shall have to pay for it out of my wife's marriage settlement.
Not unless you make application to break the trust, which I, as a trustee, should strongly oppose. As you very well know, Richard, the capital is settled on your two children, though, of course, Lady Marjorie, you receive the interest during your lifetime.
What would you advise, Sir Geoffrey?
In this matter, I am acting on behalf of the Southwold estate. It would be most improper, not to say unethical, for me to offer advice of any kind. I must be on my way. I'm sorry to bring you news which I realize can hardly be agreeable, but I have my duty to do.
Oh, Hudson, please show Sir Geoffrey out. Yes, sir.
Perhaps you care to consider the matter and let me know your decision within, say, 2 weeks? Goodbye, Richard.
Bye.
If there's no other way, we'll just have to raise the money, that's all. Don't you agree?
I think it best, until we've given some thought to this, not to mention it to the children. Or the servants.
I'm so happy, Rose. I'm sorry I've shocked you, but I've never been so happy ever before in my whole life. I'm tingling all over with happiness, and I don't feel the tiniest pang of remorse or guilt or... Oh, don't go, Rosie. You're the only person I can talk to.
Am I? What about him then?
He laughed when I told him about you saying he'd want his pound of flesh.
I'm sure he did.
I wonder why bodies are so important. He says there can be no real love until two bodies are joined together in perfect union.
Is that what you're going to tell your parents?
Oh, they mustn't know, Rose.
How do you
And
think
none
I'm
of
gonna
the other servants. Oh, not that they could ever find out.
Oh, that's what her ladyship thought, but we all knew about her and the captain.
What did you say, Rose?
Nothing.
What did you say?
Nothing.
Tell me. I've told you my secrets, now you tell me yours. Rose?
Where's Elizabeth?
She's not down yet. Apparently she's not feeling very well.
What again? I hope there's nothing really wrong with that girl.
No, I think it's just, well, she's very highly strung.
So we haven't worried enough.
She's been
for her.
through a
Of
lot.
course she's been through a lot. Whose fault is that? Not ours, surely.
It's no good bringing all that up. We've got to go on helping her.
I'm sorry, I thought we were. We provide food and lodging for her and her child, not to speak of nanny and nursery maid. We pay our husband a reasonable pension to keep him happy, and I still pay her allowance. In spite of the fact that she's married, 23, has capital of her own, and I... Morning, Elizabeth.
Good morning, Mother.
Morning, Father. How are you feeling, darling? A little better?
What? Oh, yes, much better. Thank you, Mother. It was just a... I don't quite know what it was.
Luncheon is served.
Thank you, Hudson. There we are. Come along.
Father, I want to ask you something.
Yeah?
When we help the Turks to build their lovely new navy, who do you think is going to get the contract?
What an extraordinary question. Well, since you want to know, I feel fairly sure it'll go to Armstrong's.
It is Armstrong!
You're brilliant. Now, don't take off your coat. We're going out.
Where? What for?
Oh, I think you deserve a present.
A present? What sort of a present is it?
Oh, very special sort of present.
Tell, please.
Oh, no. Come and see for yourself.
Well, it's a hat shop.
Yes, I bought it as an investment, together with what I'm assured is a very competent staff.
They're rather dull old hats.
Yes, that's what I thought.
What's it called?
Whatever you like.
Whatever I like.
It's yours, if you want it.
Of course I want it. I adore hats. I've always adored hats. Oh, Julius, I can't believe it.
Paint it any color you like. Choose whatever hats you like.
Oh, you are a darling. I shall make it the smartest, the chicest, the Frenchest hat shop in London. Is it really a present?
Shall we say a loan?
A hat shop? Darling, I'm quite extraordinary.
Sounds great fun. Whatever gave you the idea?
I happened to meet someone who offered me the job, and I do need something to do.
Yes.
I'll be back in time to see the baby in the evenings, and I'll have half a day a week every weekend.
It's just that I've never thought of your daughter running a hat shop.
You're out of date, my dear. It's all the fashion to have a shop these days.
Where is your shop, darling?
It's just off Brook Street.
Brook Street, Entree Bon Quartier. What's it called?
I haven't really thought.
You haven't thought.
They're letting me rename it, to give it a new sort of fresh look. What do you think of Madame Lisette?
Well, I really don't know, darling. I've never had to name a hat shop.
What about Paris modes?
And they see us as a threat to their absolute power over government, over society. Something which they have come to regard as theirs, absolutely, by some divine right. That's why they pretend that anyone who works in commerce and makes money must be unclean and untouchable. They don't believe it, of course, but it's a way of protecting their bastions.
It's all nonsense.
Of course. Look, there's Rose.
May I help you, mademoiselle?
I was just looking... Rose! Oh, lovely to see you. Come in. Now, you know Mr... Oh, yes, of course you do.
How do you do, sir?
Hello, Rose.
I've got to talk to you, please, Miss Elizabeth.
Oh, it's quite all right, Rose.
Well, it looks like we've got to leave 1/6 Bowie.
Got to leave the house? Why?
Oh, well, I've only got it from Mr. Hudson so far, but he says your uncle, Lord Ashby, I should say Lord Southwold, says your parents have got to buy the lease or something, and your pa says they can't afford it, and there've been lawyers there and everything.
How incredible.
They've been out all morning looking at houses in Kensington.
Can you see Mother in Kensington?
Well, there must be something in it, and that's the fact. Because Mr. Hudson had us all in for a lecture about tightening our belts, wasting not and wanting not. And I may be going to lose my housemaid. And Mr. Watkins is worried they might steal the rolls. And Mrs. Bridges is in a terrible state because they've cut her cream to 2 pints a day. She's talking about retirement and boarding houses by the sea and that. I think you ought to come home, Miss Elizabeth.
Yes, Rose, so do I. Look, while I pack a few things, you go and choose a hat for yourself. Oh, anyone you like.
No, Miss Elizabeth, I can't.
Of course you can. I want to give you one. Mademoiselle? Oui, madame. This is a friend of mine, Miss Buck.
Bonjour.
I want her to choose any hat in the shop that she likes. Of course, madame. Miss Buck, please. I must go back. You do see that, Julius. I must rush back with Rose.
Yes, you must go, but not rush. We live our lives in a series of rushes, like the infant Moses.
That's not original. I, too, read the Westminster Gazette.
As I imagine Mr. Hudson would say, more haste, less speed. Now, let's just think about it very carefully. Like Rose is thinking about that hat.
I see from your letter that you don't wish to make an offer for the lease of this house.
That is correct. Quite simply, we can't afford it.
You are quite sure? There's still time to change your mind. In that case, I have a purchaser.
Already?
Oh, yes, indeed. A very good property at a very good price. Soon snapped up.
How soon do we have to give...
Vacant possession?
Yes, vacant possession.
I'm not sure that will be necessary now.
What on earth do you mean?
I took the liberty of bringing the prospective purchaser with me.
I was eavesdropping at the keyhole. It's me!
Elizabeth, now, if this is some sort of elaborate game, I'm going to be very...
honestly, Father, the house is to be mine.
She knows she can't touch the marriage settlement money.
It's a present from Julius.
Elizabeth, you can't possibly let him.
But you can't stop him, Mother. Can she, Sir Geoffrey?
The deed of gift is already being drafted.
And I am going to give it to you. I know how much you love this house, and so do I, and so does James, and think of all the money you've spent on me over the years, and Lucy. But it's the least I can do to try and repay you a little.
I don't know what to say. I really don't. I'll have to speak to your father about it.
Well, don't be too long, or I shall let it to somebody else.
Richard, we can't possibly accept
Now, just a moment, dearest. Just a moment. Geoffrey, are you quite sure this is all right?
Mr. Karakin has already put down a deposit and is quite ready to complete, assigning the lease by deed of gift to Mrs. Kirkridge.
Sir Geoffrey, what sort of man is he?
Very agreeable, very able. One of the most able men in the city of London, I'm told, and becoming a very rich one.
You got along with him all right, did you?
My dear Richard, in my profession it would be unwise not to get along all right with a very able rich man. And if I may say so, he's the sort of man who could be very useful to the Conservative Party in the future. Very useful indeed.
Well, Rose, I must say I find it all very